is up, guys? I hope that you're ready to talk about some more Streets of New Capenna spoilers. Again, welcome. Thank you for the follows, and even if you're just watching, I super appreciate it. I really like talking about Magic. It's my favorite game ever, and I love talking about the new cards and how they can be applied. And a lot of times I'm going to be talking in the sense of that I see them for decks that I already have or decks that I want to make, and I'm already, oh, I don't know, I've got too many commander decks for that. I know I have over 20 of just for myself, and I've built a few for my wife as well. So being able to build decks and different combinations and things is just something that I really enjoy doing, especially in Commander, because there's so many different ways to interact. And with the new cards that they keep coming out with, they definitely cater a little bit more to Commander players. Again, if you are watching this, please consider following. And I also have some videos that are going to be pushed to YouTube here pretty soon. I'm actually working on the thumbnails for them right now and doing some editing, so that way I take out the whole the starting stream screen and the ending stream screens, so that way it's just the content with the little intro video at the beginning. So be on the lookout for that on YouTube if you follow me there. Same thing if you look up the ley line with the same little logo that you see there that my wife graciously made for me. Please look that up and you will find my videos there. I don't have a ton up right now other than the Sephirus, but I will make sure that I have my Caped Crusaders deck up there. I'll also put up the live deck build of my Pokemon Master deck, dedication to Codename Red, and then we will also start getting these spoiler videos up on there. Again, thank you for watching. So now, let's get to why you came here. We're going to talk about some spoilers. So, for this one, like how we went to the, yeah, I know, right? 11 followers, super awesome. Again, I super appreciate the support. And yeah, 11 is a good number. 11 is it's a number for change if you believe in numerology. It's a thing. But I just 11 followers for what, my second week of doing this is pretty cool. I'll take what I can get. So let's see. Maestros. So Maestros are the blue, black, red, previously known as Grixis. If you were to know Magic history, as far as the shards of Alara, these guys are art collectors and assassins in accordance with the lore. They're very, very treacherous, and they're very ironically, I want to use the word conniving, but like that's what the Obscura do, is connive, so I can't really use connive, but they're very they're also very much about like scheming and planning, and they're glorified hitmen with a taste for art, it seems like. So let's get into the first one. This guy here, Lord Xander the Collector. Let's see if the alternate art doesn't show up, but I'm sure we'll see it in a little bit. So this guy is a vampire demon noble. 4 blue, black, red for a 6/6. When Lord Xander the Collector enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand, rounded down. Whenever Lord Xander attacks, defending player mills half their library, rounded down. When Lord Xander dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control, rounded down. Now, I recently watched a video with the professor on Tolarian Community College talking about how he would ban this commander given the opportunity. I mean, given he does it in a funny, super funny way, and maybe he's not serious, but there is a in any case, this is a very powerful commander. He makes a very good point in that video of the cards that you can use with Xander, and it would make a pretty powerful commander deck. And even people in the comments were saying that his version is actually more tame than some other builds that they've already seen. I mean, to be able to enter the battlefield and put a damper on half of your opponent's hand, it reminds me of the robber in Catan. Honestly, that's what it reminds me of. He's the robber in Catan, and so if you just blink him over and over again, you're just gonna reduce all your all your people, your opponents' hand sizes down by half each time. Um, then when he attacks, target defending, excuse me, not target, but defending player mills half their library, rounded down. Now there's a lot of powerful synergies, especially in blue and black for mill. Um, so this would be a decent commander to build mill around. And the fact that he's 7 though is the little bit of the downside. And I think that Wizards, when they put or in R&D when they put this together, they were like, we want to make this super powerful thing, but we need to give some sort of downside. And I guess they figured that 7 as a mana cost is that downside. To be fair, in Commander, having your commander as a 7 mana commander with no way to reduce its cost on its face is actually a detriment. You'd have to have some extra ramp in your deck, and you're not even in green, so this is going to be a hard commander to pull off. But as long as you can keep him protected, once he's out there, yeah, your opponents are going to have a rough time. And then that last part, when Lord Xander dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control, rounded down. To me, this feels like insurance, right? It's like your opponents don't want to play destroy target, given they can still play exile target, but they are they're disincentivized from playing like board wipes or from playing target destruction cards or damaging cards that would force Lord Xander to die. And actually, you can take advantage of this by the fact that you're in black allows you to recur creatures from the graveyard, so you can kind of cheat your commander cost by getting the ability, sacrificing him, and then somehow reanimating him later. That would actually be a brutal but interesting strategy if you were to try to pull it off. So, yeah, I mean, again, do I think he's ban worthy? No, I don't like banning cards. Period. I think banning cards is stupid. But there are some pretty strong arguments for some cards out there, but Lord Xander is not one of them, in my opinion. 7 mana is a lot, and there's a lot of very cheap exile removal that is in Magic that can get around at least that one powerful ability. Let's go over here to Evelyn the Covetous. Oh, that's quite a name, the Covetous. All right, so Evelyn is 2 hybrid blue-black, black, hybrid black-red. So we talked about how Obscura last time is like the more heavy blue. This obviously is the more heavy black. Because its focus for this particular, I want to say gang. I want to call it gang. I feel like it's not actually called gang in the lore, but I mean that's basically what they are. I feel like the gang is very black heavy because of the fact that they're assassins, right? And a lot of assassins in Magic are typically black anyways. So let's see, we got a legendary vampire rogue with flash, so we can play it at any time. Whenever Evelyn the Covetous or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. So this is interesting, vampire tribal in these colors. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it. If it was exiled by an ability you controlled, you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. Interesting. So this is like, there's the dinosaur that kind of does this. The dinosaur that it's mono red dinosaur, the elder dinosaur, when it attacks, everybody exiles the top card of their library, and then you can play them without paying their mana cost. And then it also has this like vampire tribal thing with like extra steps, right? Because like obviously it wants you to, like, you play vampires in order to exile the stuff off the top, and then you can play them, but you still have to spend mana. You don't just get to cheat the mana cost completely. But this is an interesting concept. I would like to see a vampire tribal deck built this way with this commander and see how it goes. I mean, decks that typically have people playing your deck instead of the deck playing itself and having its own strategy. People typically, at least from my experience with the players that I've had at the table, they get very salty when you play their cards and beat them with them. To be perfectly honest, I was the same way. I had a when I was first playing with my the with the core group that I was initially, we had a player in the group who had a Send Triplets deck, and it was mean. It was a mean Send Triplets deck. And I mean, maybe it was mean because at the time, like, we played very battle cruiser Magic as opposed to the more high speed that we play. I mean, we don't. It's not like we're playing competitive, but a lot of our decks are a lot more focused than they were back in that day. So maybe that just because of that, that Send Triplets deck felt a lot more mean. But in any case, it's still playing your deck and trying to use your cards to smack you in the face with them. This is an interesting one. I think Evelyn's going to be a fun deck to use for the one using it. Maybe not so fun for the ones going against it. But I think it's kind of interesting that it does add this extra layer where you have to have a vampire tribal in order for it to work very effectively. I mean, I guess you could use changelings too, but I mean, there's plenty of good vampires in just black alone. You don't really have to stray too far from that. You get black and red. There's not really a ton of blue vampires, but there are black and blue vampires, and there's plenty of red vampires too that you could really make this deck be hurtful if you wanted to. Maestros ascendancy. So as you see, every one of these gangs is going to have an ascendancy card. So an enchantment, right, for one of each of the colors. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other cost. If a spell is cast this way, if a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So this is actually a theme that I have noticed with the Maestros, is that Maestros have this, like, copying spells but for an extra cost. They, like, there's another archetype in Magic called, like, Storm, where, like, you want to make multiple copies of the same card in order for it to be very, very effective. This feels like that, and the mechanic that they use is something called casualty, and it's very much like this, where you can cast a spell, and then as a trigger, if something has casualty, what you can do is sacrifice a creature that has the particular power that's required based on the number that's next to casualty, and then you may copy that spell, and you can then choose new targets if it would target something. So this is Maestro's Ascendancy in particular seems like a way to do it from your graveyard. So it's kind of like a flashback sort of mechanic, which is interesting. It's like flashback, but sacrificing a creature instead of just straight flashback, which is you pay whatever the flashback cost is. It's interesting. I think it would be good in a deck that is Maestros themed. I think that it would be good for that. I don't know about anything else, but hostile takeover. All right, so hostile takeover. 2 blue, black, and red for a sorcery. Up to one target creature has base power and toughness 1 until end of turn. Up to one other target creature has base power and toughness of 4/4 until end of turn. Then hostile takeover does 3 damage to each creature. I don't know. I don't feel like this card is very efficient. I mean, it might be good again for standard or for draft. There you go. That's the word. If it might be good for draft and it might be good for standard, but I don't feel like it's going to be that good for commander. At 5 to do damage to 2 creatures, making one of them a 4/4, potentially protecting one creature, and then putting one down to a 1/1 and then dealing 3 damage to it on top of that. I mean, I don't feel like that's very efficient. And I mean, Yeah, just not for commander. I just don't feel like that would be very efficient. Maybe for a 60 card format, not for a 100 card format. Maestros Diabolist. So blue, black, red for a vampire warrior with 1/4 death touch and haste. Did we talk about death touch before? Haste is actually interesting. So this one, haste is commonly associated with red. Haste means that the creature is not subject to summoning sickness, right? In Magic, in your play during like your main phases, right? Creatures suffer what's called summoning sickness after you cast them, which means that they can't attack during the turn that they are summoned. However, if they have haste on them, or if something on the field gives it haste in some way, the summoning sickness no longer applies. It can attack or it can tap if it has a tap ability that turn. Whenever Maestros Diabolist attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Okay. I think it's kind of a fun card. I mean, it lets you... Yeah, I mean, it gives you a hasty boy, and then it gives you another hasty boy with a red devil that if it dies, it just deals 1 damage to anything. So Planeswalker, the player, maybe a 1/1 creature that's out. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's actually a pretty fun card. I don't think it's overly, like, it's not like over the top, like, wow, powerful, but... So Xander's Lounge, this is right, we talked about these tri-lands, or the, like, I want to say triome, because that's effectively what they are. The first run of triomes that came out in Ikoria. I feel like that's just a pet name for these types of cards now, but these are so good, because they're able to be tutored, or they're able to be searched by cards that care about if it has an island, swamp, or mountain. I'm definitely buying copies of Xander's Lounge before they go up in price, because they're already... All of them are already $10 each. It's kind of ridiculous that these lands are $10 each. I'm getting them now before they go up, because the Ikoria lands, some of them are already up to like $20, $25 in some cases. It's actually kind of crazy. And they're lands that enter tapped. That's kind of the crazy thing. They're lands that enter tapped, but simply because you can tutor for them, like, that adds value. And it's definitely worth it in the game. I'll say that. It fixes your colors. Alright, so Cut of the Prophets. X, black, black for sorcery. Casualty 3. So we talked about casualty, right? As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, right? That's where that 3 comes in. When you do, copy this spell. You draw X cards and you lose X life. So the thing is about X spells is that when you when you make a copy of an X spell, it's copying everything about what you put into it initially, right? So that's the cool thing that they actually kind of delineate here with casualty, because there was some confusion in the past about, like, how does an X spell get copied? Does it only copy the regular face? In which case, is there any purpose to copying it? The rules delineate, saying that if you make a copy of an X spell, you copy it exactly for what it is as you cast it originally. So then you just make a copy of that. So if I were to put 10 into X for Cut of the Prophets, and then I did, in fact, use the casualty card, that means that I'm going to get a copy, and then I will draw 10 cards and lose 10 life twice, right? Given that's an extreme example, because, like, if I have 10 mana, I would hope I'd be winning the game by then. But you get the analogy, or the example. All right, Cut Your Losses. So I really like the artwork for Cut Your Losses. I think that's awesome. So Cut Your Losses, 4 blue for sorcery, casualty 2. As you cast this spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater, and when you do, copy this spell, and you may choose a new target for the copy. Target player mills half their library rounded down. I will say this much. I love mill in particular. I made it a point to build a mill deck when I first discovered Phenax, and I was told, hey, it's going to be really hard, and they were not lying. At the time, Magic didn't have a lot of things that did mill on a scale that actually hits all of them. Given Cut Your Losses targets a player as well, But the thing is, there's more things in Magic now that you can kind of spread that love around, and the fact that you can copy it with the casualty 2 already means that you can target 2 players, and you can keep maybe your one friend at the table for a turn, um, without having to mill, or perhaps your friend at the table for a turn is a graveyard deck, and in which case you're actually helping them out, so that way they can, and maybe they are, they let you be immune to them for a turn. That's a pretty cool political play that I would use, honestly. I like that. I don't like that it's 6 to cast, but I mean this is a pretty hefty spell to mill half their library, so it makes sense as to why they made it 6. Oh, milling. I didn't even explain what milling is. So here, I'll go back in there real quick. So milling means to put cards from the top of your library directly into your graveyard, right? If you're forcing somebody to mill, that's what that means. You're going to take the top however many of their library and put it directly into the graveyard. It's a fun strategy to me because it makes their deck inconsistent. It Now, given that's not to say that you can't give them something really good by accident. It does happen, but I mean that's kind of the thing about card games, right? There's still that element of chance. Me personally, the milling is fun. It's a little bit more challenging because you have to get through a 100 card deck versus getting through 40 life, right? But it is still, I think, a very fun mechanic to use, and another way to win, because in the rules of Magic, if you were to go to draw a card with no cards in your library, you automatically lose the game, and that's why milling is a popular strategy to win by in standard and in modern, but hasn't really been that popular in Commander up until recently. They've had long-standing mill commanders that have worked in the past, but they kind of work. They're not really that competitive. In recent times, they've really upped that game to where you're able to actually affect more of the table with more mill, and I do actually really appreciate that they've been doing that to give mill more of a chance in Commander to really shine. I have a mill deck myself that I am quite proud of, and we'll do a explanation on that another day. Okay, so rob the archives. We've got 1 and a red for a sorcery, casualty 1, so you can copy that if you sacrifice a creature with power 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. This is okay. It's kind of a red cantrippy card. Red doesn't have a lot of ways to just straight up draw cards. That's more blue's thing. So what red does is that it will either have a thing where you discard a card to draw a card, or it will like do what this is, where it exiles the cards, and then you have until the end of turn in order to play those cards. And the reason why it has to say play is because if you play something, you can cast something, but just because you cast something doesn't mean you can play something. It's weird to say it like that, but the reason why they have to word it that way is because lands don't get cast. Lands are played. So if a land gets exiled, you have the opportunity to still play a land on your turn, so that way you're not missing your land drops, because that super sucks if you're to miss your land drop. And then the cool thing about this is that red, when it gets exiled, red is a very impulsive color, right? It's a color of passion. It's a color of fiery emotion, right? That's the kind of the whole premise of what red is. It's like it smolders, it simmers, and then it's explosive. So being able to exile cards until end of turn kind of forces you to kind of play that way in red, and it does make for some pretty chaotic plays sometimes, but it also makes it for a lot of fun sometimes. And sometimes just exiling the top 2 cards, maybe you don't even need them, and then honestly that just gets rid of chaff off the top of your library that you don't need, so that way you can dig for the things that you do need. Maestros Charm. So I told you about that. My personal opinion on charms is I like that they're versatile. I just don't like how they're one of each color. And again, I get it because this is the whole set thing. but for what they do, I don't find them to be very efficient at what they're trying to do. It's kind of like they're the jack of all trades but master of none kind of sort of thing. Like they do three cool things, but they don't do any one of them particularly well. Um, in any case, blue, black, red, instant. Choose one. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Maestros Charm deals 5 damage to a target creature or planeswalker. It's not bad. 5 damage to a target creature or planeswalker isn't bad, honestly. But, yeah, each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. There's other cards that are better at doing that. I don't want to pay 3 mana to do that. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand, the rest into the graveyard. That is pretty decent, actually. That one, if I was going to run this card at all in a deck that was a Maestros deck, this would probably what I would go for every time. 3 mana to dig for 5 cards, potentially. And if you're in these colors, you're more than likely going to have a way to recast cards out of your graveyard. This is probably that top one is more than likely what I'm going to do with it every time. In this particular case, this one might actually be worth getting the card for that deck. Again, you want to have redundancy in decks like that, where you're trying to purposely put things into your graveyard and fill up your graveyard. This one wouldn't be a bad option in this particular case for that particular strategy. If you're trying to do the other two, they're just more like icing on the cake, in my opinion. Let me see. I'm going to start doing this where I put it in a new window. So far, I've been good, but this is also the top of the page. So I'm going to have to start doing the put it in a new window now. Okay, Cormela, Glamour Thief. 1 blue, black, red for a vampire rogue. 2/4 haste. So that's kind of cool. 1 tap, add black, red, black, blue, and red. Oh, that's cool. Send it. Spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells. Okay, makes sense. This is these colors, this theme, this gang. This is what their bread and butter is. You want to cast instant and sorcery spells most of the time. You're going to be a spell slinger deck if you build around these guys. When Cormela Thief or Glamour Thief, dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from the graveyard to your hand. That's actually pretty decent. As a commander, you can make a value engine off of that. I feel like you can definitely. I don't know how you would. Hopefully, you wouldn't have to use it too often because I mean that commander tax is real, but that's still actually pretty decent. You can just any instant or sorcery card, if it's in your graveyard, you return it to your hand. That's pretty decent. I would take that. Building a commander around that would be pretty decent actually. And this is an uncommon too. That's wild. These uncommon ones they're sleeper commanders, man. They just because they're uncommon does not mean they are not powerful. All right. New window. All right, Corpse Appraiser. Blue, black, red for Vampire Rogue 3/3. When Corpse Appraiser enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target creature from a graveyard. If a card is put into exile this way, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Okay. Interesting. So this one looks like it kind of wants you to blink him over again or recur him over and over again in some form or fashion, or even bounce him, I guess. And as long as you have creatures in your graveyard, you can really dig through your library. And it puts more cards into your graveyard, so you have the potential to, if you do blink him, you have the potential to have creatures to do that too. I think that you can make him a decent value piece, actually. I don't think he's that bad. I don't, again, the fact that he's 3 specific colors feels very inefficient to me. Again, I understand that this is a theme. I feel like if you're gonna run these colors, he's not bad, but there are other cards that can do it for. They're a little bit more versatile at kind of doing something like this. But he's not bad. He's not bad. I would say include him and try it out. Grizzly Sigil in a new window. Grizzly Sigil. We got a 1 black for a sorcery. Casualty 1. Choose target creature or planeswalker. If it was dealt non-combat damage this turn, Grizzly Sigil deals 3 damage to it and you gain 3 life. Otherwise, Grizzly Sigil deals 1 damage and you gain 1 life. Ooh, interesting. So this is actually pretty interesting because what you can do is you can use the casualty 1, copy the spell, right? Then, as it's on the stack, because even though it's a sorcery, you're still making a copy of it, therefore the stack is now in place. The copy is going to resolve first, to which case you will do 1 damage more than likely with the copy, and it's non-combat damage, right? That's very specific about that. So you'll do 1 damage to it, gain 1 life. Then your original copy will begin to resolve, and that one will deal 3 damage, and you'll gain 3 life. That's actually kind of interesting. For 1 mana and sack a creature, it's effectively dealing 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker, and you gain 4 life. It's not bad. It's a sorcery. Would like to see that it's an instant. I understand why they did it as a sorcery, though. Pretty decent. I don't know if it would be like auto include for my deck, but I think it's a fun thing. I'd say, put it in there, try it out, see if you like it. Me personally probably wouldn't put that one in there. Illicit Shipment. 3 black for a sorcery. Casualty 3. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So we got a tutor for casualty 3. It's 5 mana, but if you sack a creature, you get to tutor twice. It's not terrible. In fact, I can think of a deck already that I would put that in. Probably Mirren. Because Mirren likes to sacrifice creatures anyway, and then I can put the 2 cards that I need directly into my hand, as opposed to having to do the game of put 1 into the graveyard, put another 1 in my hand, and then I've got to recur it from the graveyard. As long as I have the creature already, a creature already on board to sacrifice, then I get the 2 cards that I need. And Mirren is one of those decks that's super efficient at what she does. So this wouldn't be terrible. And I would say that, Mirren's cap in that deck, and again, I'll do a video on that later, but that deck is, it caps out at 7, but it's only got 1 mana cost 7 in there that I can think of off the top of my head. And even then, it will never cast any spell for 7 mana. It will cheat that into play by purposefully putting that into the graveyard and then cheating that out onto the battlefield. I never pay more than, I think, 4 mana for anything in that deck, actually casting something outright. So Illicit Shipment wouldn't be a bad card for that deck. It's a good card for any deck that cares about sacrificing creatures. So, yeah, man, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Get that. It's an uncommon. That doesn't mean it's not powerful. All right, a little chat. That's interesting. I actually say that. I want to have a little chat with you. I say that. It's weird. Now it's weird. I'm not going to say that anymore. Anyways, 1 in a blue for an instant. Casualty 1. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put 1 into your hand. Put the other 1 into the bottom of your library. Now that's weird. That's weird because the deck, or the theme, seems like it wants to put things into the graveyard. But in this particular case, you look at 2 cards. You put 1 of them in your hand and 1 in the bottom. You have the opportunity to cast it twice. It's weird that they wouldn't just say you look at the top 2, put 1 in the graveyard, put 1 in your hand, and then you have the opportunity. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit off theme. especially with all the other cards that we've seen, like how they want to put things into the graveyard. I feel like this is kind of a one-off, and I'm kind of disappointed at that it doesn't really keep up with the theme there. But maybe they decided that that was a too powerful of an effect. I don't really know. I don't really know. Rooftop nuisance. Rooftop nuisance, 2 in a blue. Sorcery for casualty 1. Tap target creature, it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, draw a card. This is not bad. I feel like this is better in something that's a 60 card format with being able to tap a target creature and it doesn't untap. You're dealing with less creatures when you're in a 60 card format versus in Commander. And then you get to draw cards. So that part's kind of nice. It gets to replace itself. And then if you casualty 1, you actually draw 2 cards for the price of using 1. So that's not terrible. It's decent. I don't think I would use it in Commander though. Glamorous outlaw. Glamorous outlaw, 3 blue, black, red for a vampire rogue. When Glamorous Outlaw enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent and you scry 2. Then you can exile. Okay, so this is like that angel from yesterday where you can pay 2, you exile it, and then it fixes your lands, one of your lands to be all of the colors that you have. If you're running all the colors in this, all the colors on this card, so that's actually kind of cool. Again, like 6 mana is just a lot. I mean, it just is. 6 mana is just a lot to do something like that, and it's not ramping you. Again, it just fixes your mana. But I think it would be an interesting, and if you're gonna do that vampire tribal for these colors, this probably would be a good include. I'm not gonna say that it's a must include, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Maestros Theater. So we kind of talked about that one with the Obscura storefront. It's basically the same thing, just in the Maestros. So enters the battlefield, you immediately sacrifice it, and then you search your library for an island, a basic island, swamp, or mountain card. I gotta make sure I delineate that, and then you gain a life. Enters the battlefield tapped. Yeah, like, I mean, unless you're doing some sort of weird Maestro landfall thing, like, I don't know if it's really that effective, but it's okay. I mean, whatever. If you're really hurting for that other basic, if you're really hurting for another color, which 3-color decks do need fixing a lot, so, again, not bad. Maestro's Initiate, 2 and a black for a human citizen, 3/1. 4 hybrid blue-red. Exile Maestros Initiate from your graveyard. Draw 2 cards and discard a card. Again, I feel like this is another one that's a little bit more decent in a 60-card format versus a 100-card format. Paying 5 mana to draw 2 cards and discard a card. That's very inefficient for something like that in Commander. Make Disappear. 1 and a blue for instant casualty 1. And counter target spell unless this controller pays 2. This is pretty decent. I like this a lot, actually, because because if you sack a creature for the casualty 1, what you could do is you'll copy it, then you can with the copy of that counter spell, you can target the same spell. So effectively, you're countering a spell unless the controller pays 4, as long as you sacrifice a creature. Make Disappear is going to be another one of those sleeper counter spells, in my opinion. If you're in blue and you have a creature heavy deck, especially if it's a creature heavy deck that cares about sacrificing, Make Disappear is going to be a staple for a deck like that. Don't sleep on that card. That's going to be a good card. And people in non-blue that are going to go up against blue decks like that are going to hate it because they always hate counter spells. Nobody likes being told no. Join the Maestros. So you got 4 and a black for a sorcery casualty 2. Create a 4/3 black Ogre Warrior creature token. Okay. Interesting. Maybe you sacrifice another creature to get... I mean, you're sacrificing a 2 power creature to get effectively 8 power on the board. That's not bad. That's actually pretty decent. Um, Given I don't know what I would actually do with that after I had it, but if you're maybe if you have some sort of token strategy, I suppose, because like in a deck like the Maestros, like you want to have creatures so that way you can use your casualty, but you also want to have a lot of instants and sorceries that you're going to be that are going to be very impactful during your game. So maybe that's part of the reason why they did that is that they gave you kind of a one that's kind of in between that gives you the casualty usage for to sacrifice, but then also gives you more fodder so that way you can continue to use the casualty going into other cards. Maybe that's why they chose to do that. I wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to slide that in and just see how that works. Dig up the body. Oh boy. All right. So dig up the body. 2 and a black for an instant casualty 1. Mill 2 cards. Then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's decent. I wouldn't put it as. I'd say this. It's not bad for a recursion spell. That's pretty decent. And then you can casualty 1, so you mill 4 cards and you return 2 creatures from the graveyard to your hand. Yeah, that's not bad. I'd run it. I'd run it in a deck like Mirren. As because in a deck like Mirren, like that gives me more access to more cards in my graveyard, and then I potentially put 2 creatures that I want into my hand that maybe are cheap, and I can just put out there, rather than having to wait until the end of the turn to reanimate it, even though it's free. I can just, if I have the extra mana to use, I can put it out there. I say that's decent. Yeah, I'd run that card. And it's a common. Light 'em up! Oh my gosh, that's a story for another day. But, and probably actually not for, probably not for this environment. Well, I'll do something offline for that story if you ask me about it. So, Light 'em up is 1 and a red for a sorcery. Casualty 2. Light 'em up deals 2 damage to a target creature or planeswalker. Okay, so you sacrifice it, deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Again, this is another one of those that feels like it's better in a 60 card format versus a 100 card format. But then again, Magic is originally made for a 60 card format, so it makes sense that they do that. Okay, so now we're getting to the mono cards here. I'm actually going to skip past these, and we're going to go straight to the Commander cards. The Altered Arts. The Altered Arts are so cool. I mean, look at those. Those are awesome. Okay, so on Hello, I think that's how you say that. On Hello is the actual face commander for the Maestros Massacre deck. So let's see here. I've got the actual deck list over here. You guys can't see it, but I've got it over here. So on Hello the Painter is blue, black, red, death touch for vampire assassin 1/3. The first instant and sorcery spell you cast each turn has casualty 2. Oh my goodness. That can get stupid fast. That can get stupid really fast. Because as long as you can feed your casualties by like having, you can even like that other card that we saw, we can put instants and sorceries that give you tokens like tutus, and then you can just use them as fodder to continue fueling your value engine of this instant and sorcery casualty nonsense. This, man, this can go out of control, I think, really, really fast. Yeah, he's powerful. I don't know if I would. I'm not gonna change my. I have Nicol Bolas as my commander in these colors, so I'm not gonna change that. But maybe in the future, after I've finally gotten done with my quest of making a deck for every color, he might be decent to build up. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Parnese? I don't know actually how to say that. That's another one that's weird. Parnese, the subtle brush. 2 blue, black, red for a vampire wizard 4/4. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless that player pays for life. Whenever you copy a spell, up to one target opponent may also copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Now that's actually pretty interesting. I think this is a very political commander. Now, given whenever you or a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability, you just counter that unless they pay for life. Now, given at the beginning of the game, 4 life is hardly anything to pay, but as the game goes on, like people start getting their life total close to 20, past that 4 life all of a sudden becomes a lot. So, yeah, they're going to be picking that very carefully. This Parnisi is a commander that is very political, and I think that that's actually kind of fun. I like political commanders. I think that they're a lot more fun because there's a lot more interaction that you have to do with the player to kind of see what kind of deals you can make and see what how you can swindle your way to victory, as it were. But this one is actually kind of again, that last part in particular. Whenever you copy a spell, up to one target opponent can also make a copy, and that actually opens up because they're like, oh, I'm giving you a gift, so that way I'm gonna do this thing, but I'm gonna give you a gift, and now what is in it for me if I give you this gift, right? That's actually an interesting thing, and I will say though that like being political like that does actually win you games sometimes, like because of the fact that like, okay, I'm gonna give you a little something to get ahead, and then that kind of that opens up the table, like, okay, look, I'm gonna give you this thing, but you can't touch this creature, or like, I want to give you a copy of this spell, so don't hit my enchantment, right? There's different deals that you could swing. Obviously, make it as fair as you can make it. I think make your deals reasonable. You can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna let you copy this spell. I'm gonna let you copy this cantrip, so you have to give me total immunity for a turn. I think that's just ridiculous. But tailor your uh tailor your whatever copies and your political ploys to what you think is appropriate. I think that actually can be very, very useful, very fun commander to do. Maestros Confluence. So we saw that the Obscura Confluence yesterday was pretty decent. What's this one got? So we got 3 blue, black, red for sorcery. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. Return target monocolored instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Goad each creature target player controls. So goad we have not talked about yet. Goad means that until your next turn, creatures attack each combat if able, and they attack a player other than you if able. That can be very powerful, and that's effectively a board wipe in some cases. Yeah, like I would, man. Yeah, honestly, I would this is worth it for sure. Like I would take that for the return 2 instants and sorceries from the graveyard to my hand, and then goad uh the whoever's ahead, especially if they're a combo player and they don't want their creatures attacking. Like that's yeah, these confluence cards are actually like really, like, I'm a huge proponent of these confluence cards. I think that they're worth the mana. Okay. And now we're getting towards the bottom here where we got to figure out which of these cards is a new card. Who? Okay. So, Maestro's Massacre. In my deck list here, we have, let's see. Skyclave Shade. Let's see if that one's in here somewhere. Perhaps, or no, you know what? Skyclave Shade. You know that one's actually an older card. That one's probably not in here. Um. Yeah, I think I saw Skyway, and I kind of thought, Skyclave, Sky. Yeah, whatever, whatever. All right, let's see. Oh man, they got double vision here. That's kind of crazy. Double vision is wild. The first spell, you can't see it over here, but yeah, double vision is a card that it's a mono red card where you basically copy the first spell that you cast during that turn, and you can make new targets for the copy. It's a super value mono red card, which is pretty pretty decent. Um, okay, so extravagant replication is one that comes in here. I think they were smart about this deck list. I think that they put together these deck lists with all the other cards that are um, reprints, and then they made like their whole separate file here. This is on Magic or on Wizards.com, by the way. They have lists there. So we went over Parnisi over here. Let's go over Extravagant Replication, which is actually looks like a pretty decent enchantment here. We got 4 blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that is a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. So this is actually, yeah, like this is yeah, followed footsteps. You can see it down there. Followed footsteps. This is followed footsteps without the enchant creature. You can, and it's any non-land permanent. That's wild. That is just wild. That's worth the 6 mana. I'll tell you that much. I don't think that enchantment is sticking around very long though. If I saw that, I would blow that up. I'd blow that up before it got out of control, because there are definitely some things out there that you can do with this card, making copies of some pretty gnarly stuff. Yeah, that's, man. And then on top of that too, that actually feeds into your casualty, because you can just like you can make a copy of just some non-bow card, and then you just sack that card for your casualty, and boom, you have an extra copy. That's, oh man, oof. Yup, I like it. I think it's good. All right, next one, Flawless Forgery. Flawless Forgery. Where's it at? Right here. Flawless Forgery for 3 blue. For casualty 3, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy that card. You may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. Okay, so again, we have a card that kind of plays into the I'm going to play your things. This is a card, Flawless Forgery is one of those that goes into the vampire deck that wants to play other people's stuff. Yeah, I think that one's actually, that's decent. And actually sometimes, like especially if you're playing against like a green deck and maybe you really need to get some extra ramp to kind of catch up, like you can copy their ramp spells. I mean, that's not bad. I'd take it. Or if you're playing against another white deck and they have a bunch of removal in their graveyard and you want to get rid of a bunch of their stuff, especially since white ironically runs a bunch of indestructible, but then its removal has a lot of like exile target, so that it knows how to get rid of itself. So, interesting. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good card. I think you should try it out if you're gonna do a deck that's like that. Sinister Concierge. Where's that one at? That might be a black card. Sinister Concierge. Not seeing it. Unless... Oh, nope. It is a blue card. It's out of order. Okay. So Sinister Concierge. If that's how you... Concierge? Concierge? I don't know how to say that. 1 and a blue for a human wizard. 2/1. When Sinister Concierge dies, you may exile it. Put 3 time counters on it. If you do, exile up to 1 target creature. And put 3 time counters on it. Each card is exiled this way. That doesn't have suspend gains suspend. That's interesting. I like it. I don't know if this is removal necessarily. I mean, in some the way that some games go, sometimes you can make it removal because sometimes they're just fast, and 3 turns is a long time to put it out. So if something has suspend, right, that means that like it talks about the time counters. It, something has suspended. It's in exile sort of, and it has these time counters. And during your upkeep, you remove a time counter off of it up until all the time counters are gone. And then after that, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. So being able to suspend something doesn't necessarily put it into the graveyard because if they're a graveyard deck, they have access to it. And but it doesn't quite get rid of it either. It just puts it somewhere else, which, again, that can potentially be exactly what you need to end the game. It could potentially be removal, but I wouldn't say outright on its face it's removal because once again, you have to do something else for it to happen. It has to die. Given this theme that they have, you want you have the ability to sacrifice it because of the casualty stuffs. So it's less difficult to do something like that with this guy. So you do, I'd say play around with it. If it does end up playing into your favor, I'd say go ahead and do it. But I wouldn't automatically put Sinister Concierge as one of my removal spells in the deck. But I do think it's a good idea to put in there as another one, as an additional one. Body count. Body count, body count, body count. Body count. Okay, now we're getting into the black spells. Alright, so body count. We got 2 in a black for an instant spectacle. Okay, for 1. And then draw a card for each creature that died under your control this turn. Okay, so spectacle means that if an opponent lost life this turn, you may cast it for its spectacle cost rather than its normal cost. So that's actually kind of cool. And you're in red, so that's like super easy to do. Spectacle is actually a keyword that comes out of the Ravnica set that was the most recent in Rakdos, which means that it's the black-red. And that's mainly what they do, is that you can play stuff for cheaper, you can play it faster, typically, if your opponent has taken damage that turn. So that's actually kind of cool. I like that. And then it's potentially, you know, especially with all the casualties you got going on, that's potentially draw, 2 or 3 cards for 1 mana is not bad. Even for 3 mana, drawing 3 cards is pretty good. So, yeah, I'd run that card. I'd keep that in there. Dogged Detective. Alright, let's look for that one. Dogged Detective. There we go. Dogged Detective for a 1 and a black human rogue 2/1. When Dogged Detective enters the battlefield, Surveil 2. So Surveil is super cool. It's actually, again, going back to Ravnica, that Surveil is a mechanic that means that you can look at that many cards, in this case 2, and then you can put any number of them into the graveyard from the top of your library. So and again, this is another one of those things where if you care about putting stuff into your graveyard, this is exactly what you want. Surveil is fantastic for decks that want to put stuff that are graveyard strategies. Whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you may return Dogged Detective from your graveyard to your hand. That's actually kind of cool. Again, it's another one of those that's hard to do, and you do have to make sure that you're paying attention. But that is a lot easier than it sounds for when it comes to drawing cards, because it's not like putting an additional land into play. Drawing extra cards is not something that's uncommon to just blue decks. Like, other decks do it. Other strategy, like black can do it. Green can do it. Red kinda does it. And in white, not really. White, not really. But yeah, just about every other color has a way to draw multiple cards in the same turn. So Dog Detective is pretty decent. I'd buy that for $1. Probably isn't $1. It's probably like 50 cents right now. Okay, make an example. Make an example. Another black card. Here we go. Make an example. 3 black for a sorcery. Each opponent separates the creatures they control into 2 piles. For each opponent, you choose one of those piles. Each opponent sacrifices the creatures in their chosen pile. Oof. And it says these piles can be empty. So, again, that's another one of those things where it's a political ploy. And maybe they want all of their creatures sacrificed because they're a graveyard strategy, and you sacrificing all their creatures actually helps them. So, you would choose the pile that's empty in that case. I doubt that you'll ever have one that's completely empty, but I think that this is again, this is another one of those cards that's very political, and I think that you can really play into that. And in fact, this might be another one of those cards that I want for my Brina deck, just so that way I can have one that doesn't necessarily a board wipe, quote unquote, that doesn't necessarily target stuff, and I can just kind of do that. Yeah, that's actually, I like that a lot. I'm gonna put that card. I'm gonna put that card in my Brina deck for sure. Political nonsense. I like it. Okay. Waste management. Oh, that sounds awful. Alright, waste management. We got 2 in a black with a kicker cost. Ugh, I hate kicker cards. I'm not gonna lie to you, I hate kicker cards. So let's see if it's worth it. Alright, so the kicker cost is 3 in a black. That means that you have to pay that additional 3 in a black mana. So total, if we cast this with its kicker, this is 7 mana. That's a lot. That's a little okay. Let's see what it says. Exile up to 2 target creatures. Ugh, I hate when it resets. Exile up to 2 target creatures from a single graveyard. If this spell was kicked, instead exile target player's graveyard. Then create a 2/2 black rogue creature token for each creature card exiled this way. Okay. I guess it depends on how big their graveyard is, if it's worth it. But for 3 mana, you exile 2 cards in a single graveyard. If they're 2 creatures, you get 2/2 black rogues for 3 mana. You get 4 power on the board for 3 mana. That's pretty decent. I'd run that in a deck that cares about that kind of thing. Yeah, I just don't know about that kicker cost though. But I will say this, as far as kicker cards go, this is definitely one of the better ones that I've seen, because there's kicker cards out there that they're just stupid. They're just like, they're not at all worth the mana to even run in the deck normally, let alone with the kicker cost. All right, Xander's Pact. All right, now this is going to be okay. So Xander's Pact, 4 black for casualty 2. Each opponent exiles the top card of their library. You may cast spells from among those cards this turn. If you cast this spell this way, pay life equal to that spell's mana value rather than pay its mana cost. This is something that black actually does, where if you have access to stuff, sometimes you can pay life rather than pay mana. Those kind of cards are super powerful, because using life as a resource in Commander is one of the most powerful things that you can do. I think that if you have an opportunity to run a card like this or do something like this, you absolutely want to run it. So, 100% Xander's Pact, I think it's a good card. 6 mana is a lot, but I mean, Casualty 2, you can copy this. You have access to potentially what? Because it's each opponent. So like in a 4-player pod, you got 3 opponents. You have access to 3 cards the first time you casualty. You have access to potentially 6 cards that you can cast spells, and you can pay life for rather than pay the mana cost. Yeah, totally, that's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Audacious Swap. Audacious Swap. That might be a red card. Let's see. It might be a red card. Audacious, yes it is. That's the first of our red cards. So, Audacious Swap. We've got 3 in a red for casualty 2. Instant. The owner of target non-enchantment permanent shuffles it into their library, then exiles the top card of their library. If it's a land card, they put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, they may cast it without paying its mana cost. So this is Chaos Warp, except that it doesn't hit an enchantment. I don't really like that, because red doesn't have a lot of ways to deal with enchantments anyway. So I feel like making it specifically towards a non-enchantment permanent kinda sucks. Like, I mean, I guess like at least it has access to land. So if you're gonna hit a non-basic land that has a really powerful effect, that's true. But like a lot of times, the enchantments are the things that you want to get rid of, and red having not another way to do that, and it's for 4 mana. So like, yeah, sure, like you have the casualty 2, you have the potential to copy it, so you can shuffle 2 things into the library. I don't know. I personally don't like this card. I don't think it's gonna be that great. I mean, to me, it's very inefficient for a removal spell to begin with. Chaos Warp at 3 mana is a lot in my opinion, but I still run Chaos Warp in decks in red decks that need it. Yeah, I really wish that Audacious Swap was a like, even if Audacious Swap, you kept it at 4 mana and you said non-land permanent as opposed to non-enchantment permanent, I think that that would be worth it. That would be 100% worth it. I don't like spending 4 mana for it, but I would do it. Yeah, I just feel like that one could have been made, could have been pushed a little bit, but still been done in a fair way. And I just don't feel like they really did that this time with that one. Determined iteration. Let's see what we got for determined iteration. Alright. Determined iteration. 1 red for an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. Interesting. The token created this way gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, cool. So, determined iteration, when you populate, it means that you create a token copy of a creature that's already a token that you control. So that's actually super cool, and especially in a deck like this where you want to have creatures to be able to sacrifice, this is actually potentially a very good card to have. You have to sacrifice at the end of the turn. You might as well sacrifice it anyway for a casualty. So this is not bad. I like this card. I think that there's a lot of good potential with that determined iteration. Spellbinding Soprano. All right, let's find that one. That sounds interesting. Spellbinding Soprano. Okay, so Spellbinding Soprano, 1 in a red for a human bard. That is a 2/2. Whenever Spellbinding Soprano attacks, instant sorcery spells you cast this turn are 1 less to cast, and then it has Encore. So Encore is 3 in a red. In this case, you exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, you create a token copy that attacks each opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, and then you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So I see what they did here. So they made Encore, so that way you have the potential to attack with them. The attacks, though, you can in response to them being attacking, like during the declare blocker step, you can use the casualty on like an instant spell, so you sacrifice the creature and you have more potential for more of those. I think that was an interesting move. It's a smart move, and it's a very smart move, especially since if you're going to have multiple copies of Spellbinding Soprano, that means that potentially your instant sorceries that turn that you're going to cast are going to be 3, 4 less to cast in some cases, depending on how many opponents you have. So that's actually pretty decent. I think that's an excellent card. Cryptic Pursuit. Cryptic Pursuit. Hmm. That might not be a red card. Let's see. Cryptic Pursuit. Is that a multi? Yes, Cryptic Pursuit. Here we go. So 2 blue red for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell from your hand, manifest the top card of your library. Okay. Okay. So again, it gives you more potential for 2/2s that you can sacrifice. That's ooh. I didn't even think about that. You can use manifest in this deck. That's brilliant. That's a good way to do that actually. Yeah, and I was just about to say they got a Primordial Mist over here. That's oh man. Primordial Mist is another enchantment that functions very similarly to that. And I'm gonna be doing like a morph / manifest deck in the future. Oh. Cryptic Pursuit might go in that deck too. Whenever a face-down creature you control dies, exile it if it's an instant or sorcery card, then you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. Yeah, that's awesome. Because then it goes into exile. You have until the end of your next turn to cast it, which means you potentially have access to that card. And then if you do cast it, it goes back into your graveyard as a normal. That's, ooh, that's good. That's really good. Yep, super glad that's coming out before I put together my Morph and Manifest deck. Whew. Yup. Yup, yup, yup. Okay. Maestros Confluence. We already talked about Maestros Confluence. Cyrix, Carrier of the Flame. So we got to go back up here for that. Cyrix, Carrier of the... Okay. Cyrix, Carrier of the Flame is a Phoenix. Ooh, cool. 2 black, red for Phoenix Flying Haste. It's a 3/3. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature card left your graveyard this turn, target Phoenix you control deals damage equal to its power to any target. Whenever another Phoenix you control dies, you may cast Cyrix, the Carrier of the Flame, from your graveyard. Interesting. I feel like... I mean, then again, like, there are lots of Phoenixes in Magic. I don't know if it's enough to do Phoenix Tribal, but that would be interesting. If somebody does do Phoenix Tribal, please let me know. I want to watch that video. I want to see how you do it. I think that would be super fun. A super fun build to see. A super fun commander commander deck to see be built around. That's just goofy. But that first ability though is what you're gonna build it around for sure. Like target Phoenix you control deals damage equal to its power to any target, which most likely is going to be to the face, right? Because especially in these colors, like it may not have permanent removal, but it can have player removal, and that's more important. Smuggler's Buggy. That's probably a vehicle. Smuggler's Buggy. Yep, right ya. Alright, Smuggler's Buggy for artifact vehicle for 4 with crew 2, meaning that you have to have creature with power, total creatures with power 2 or more in order to crew it. So you can have a 2/2 or you can have 2 1/1s to crew it. And it has Hideaway 4. When this this is enchantment here in the description, but it's actually artifact. When this artifact enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest into the bottom in any order. Whenever Smuggler's Buggy deals combat damage to a player, you may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost. If you do, return Smuggler's Buggy to its owner's hand. Interesting. It's potentially a way to kind of sneak something in. I mean, obviously because it's called Smuggler's Buggy, right? But like, you dig for 4? I don't know if that one's really worth it. I don't find the Hideaway a lot of times is worth it, and that's just, again, this is just my honest opinion. I don't find that Hideaway is worth it that often, but, I mean, maybe. You can try it. A little chat, so we did that one already. Cormela, Glamour Thief, Maestros Charm, Maestros Theater. So we already went over those cards, so super cool. I think that deck has a lot of potential to be crazy. Especially with the face commander. The face commander is powerful on Hello. That one, I mean, given I don't play like CEDH often, but on Hello seems like out of all the commanders that we've got here, that one's probably your CEDH commander. That one's gonna be pretty powerful for what he does. I don't know. We'll see. Probably playing with power or somebody like that will end up doing a video on that here pretty soon. I'm willing to bet. So, or not playing with power, or not. Well, maybe playing with power. Playing with power would be one YouTube channel that does something like that. But I think the one I'm thinking of is Play to Win. Yeah, that's the one. Play to Win. Those guys are actually super cool, by the way. They do CEDH all the time, and that's what their whole point is. They build super powerful decks to try to win as quickly as possible, and they make proxies, so they're not like spending buku bucks on it. And they're players that they've all agreed that this is what they're going to do. They're going to play the super powerful decks, just not spend the crazy amount of money that it is to have to make some of those decks in some cases, and they still have a lot of fun doing it. They clearly have some charisma on that channel. I highly recommend you checking them out if you really want to go in the CEDH direction and kind of understand how they do. And I will say that for me, I wouldn't say I'm a casual player, but I would say that I'm definitely not like a CEDH tier most of the time. I like to play around in like the focused arena, not like the crazy super fast CEDH. But the one thing that you do learn by watching CEDH players is how to sequence and how efficient cards really are in a game that is that fast paced. And I will say that I have learned a new appreciation for the format because of seeing players like that. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the top. So I said we're going to do parts 2 and 3, right? So part 2 was the Maestros. Part 3 is the Riveteers. The Riveteers are the green, black, and red. So they're the ones that would be the Jund, I guess, if you're going to go to the old Shards of Alara one. And so I'm going to scroll down here so that I can get to the Riveteers. Rampage is the deck name. Okay, so first of all, again, just like we did before, we're going to go over cards from the main set that are in those colors that I think are quite interesting as we go down the list here. And then we'll actually go to the commander cards that are actually in the deck, and we'll see what we can do with those. So let's... Zayatora? Is that how we say that? Yep. Zayatora. So we have a 3 black, red, green... Zayatora the Incinerator is a 6/6 demon dragon flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Zayatora the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. My goodness, this thing is craziness. That's going to be wild. So I have a Corvold deck. And actually, it's actually kind of funny that the Corvold actually shows up down here in the little thesaurus that they have there. So this is Vivictus Asmodi too. Oof. So as these colors in particular, this is something that this is very good at doing. It's like being able to sacrifice creatures, regurgitate, reuse, recycle, whatever you want to, what word you want to attach to it. These decks are very good at reanimation and then sacrificing and in a way, kind of how we talked about aristocrats, where we want to rinse and repeat stuff like that, so that way we can gain a value engine. Like, this is exactly what this wants to do, except because it's in red, it's a lot more aggressive. So we're able to deal damage directly to a player. Well, I mean, any target, so we can get rid of planeswalkers too, but I mean, we can more often than not, we sacrifice something and then just smash somebody in the face with whatever that is, and then we create 3 treasure tokens, and those 3 treasure tokens is potentially a reanimation spell that's just going to put that creature right back onto the battlefield. That can get disgusting fast. All right, next one, Ognis. Right, this one is obviously the red heavy out of the gangs here. So Ognis, the Dragon's Lash, 1 for a hybrid black-red, red, and hybrid red-green for a Vaishino warrior. So from my understanding, Vaishinos are like in between lizards and dragons. That's my understanding of what those things are. Yeah, so haste, talked about that. He's a 3/3. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. Now this is interesting, because typically when treasure tokens are made, you have to tap them and then sacrifice them in order to get the mana that you want. And in this particular case, you just get a tapped treasure token, so you kind of have to wait. It's delayed. I still think that it's going to be a strong commander, don't get me wrong, and there are definitely ways in Magic to untap those permanents that you have enter the battlefield, but I find that very interesting that they decided to go that way. I mean, I think if you were to make this guy just create treasure tokens, like, he would be extremely powerful, like way too OP. I mean, yeah, because like especially with these colors can get very aggressive very fast. You have red, which is the aggression color. You have black, which can constantly recur things from your graveyard over and over and over again. And then you have green, which which is literally the color of ramp. You have exactly what you need in order to create an environment which you smash very hard into your opponents every single time, every single turn. So the ascendancy card, right? We kind of knew that was coming. So Riveteers ascendancy, 1 of each of the colors for an enchantment. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return a target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. Now, that's actually pretty cool. I like things that only happen once each turn are still powerful, because if you do something on your opponent's turn, like, you can still sacrifice stuff at instant speed as long as it doesn't have to tap, right? If you can activate that ability. So, I mean, that's still potential to be, you're still taking or doing an action on somebody else's turn every time, should you have the sack outlet in order to do so. And then, as long as you have the creatures in your graveyard in order to do so. It's not a bad card. Not a bad card for that particular type of strategy. Tenacious Underdog. Okay. Alright, so 1 in a black for Human Warrior 3/2 with Blitz. So this is one I haven't seen before. So 2 black, pay 2 life. If you cast a spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste. And when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. You may cast Tenacious Underdog from your graveyard using its Blitz ability. Now that's cool. 4 mana is a lot, but I mean, you still get to smash into somebody for 3. When it dies, you still draw a card after that. Like, and you're gonna sacrifice it at the next end step, so even if somebody doesn't block it, you're still drawing a card. Yeah, I'd run them. That's pretty cool. Zayator's Envoy. Alright. Zayator's Envoy, Vaishino Warrior. 1 black, red, green for a 5/4 with Blitz. For a Blitz of 2 black, red, green. Okay. Trample. Whenever Zayator's Envoy deals combat damage, to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put the card into your hand. Okay, so if nothing else, he deals combat damage to a player and you draw a card, right? That's pretty decent. I'd put him in there. I would count that actually as a card draw in my normal card draw. I would definitely do that. Xayator's Proving Ground. We talked about these cards already, but this is the one that's a Swamp Forest Mountain. Like, if you're running three or more colors, run these. If you have a 5-color deck, then that's a different conversation. We'll get to that when I get to that explanation. But if you're running a 3-color deck that has these colors, just slide that in there. And if you're running a 4-color deck that has these colors in there, slide this one in there too. Workshop Warchief. Ooh, that looks cool. Workshop Warchief is 3 green for a Rhino Warrior 5/3 trample. When Workshop Warchief enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. Okay, kind of green thing to do. Whenever Workshop Warchief dies, create a 4/4 Rhino Warrior creature token, and then it has Blitz. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you play it for its Blitz cost, you just get the 4/4 Rhino like immediately. I guess that's kind of what they were going with there. That's actually kind of cool. Interesting. Unleash the Inferno. Alright, so 1 black and a red, or 1 black, red, green, excuse me. 1 black, red, green, instant. Unleash Inferno deals 7 damage to a target creature or planeswalker. My goodness, that's a lot of damage. When it deals access damage this way, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the amount of access damage. That might be worth it. That's a lot. Yeah, that might be a card that I would run. That's potentially 2 things for 4 mana. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I'd try it out. Man, that's a lot of damage. 7 damage. Oof, man. Alright. Okay, Jaxus the Troublemaker. Let's look at you here. Alright, so 3 and a red for a Human Warrior 2/3. Red and tap, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and whenever this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate this only as a sorcery. So, okay, so it gives you like half of Blitz. Interesting, okay. And then it itself has Blitz for 1 and a red. Interesting. I feel like she would be a very cool mono red commander. Because, like, yeah, I mean, that would be a very interesting mono red commander to actually build around, because you're going to be a very, very aggressive deck, but each time you're discarding a card, you create another copy of a target creature, and then you're drawing cards, so you're still digging through your deck. Given, again, right, we talked about how red, you typically discards a card in order to draw a card, or you're exiling cards off the top of your library, and you only get till the end of the next turn to play him. But still, she would be a very fun commander to build around. I already have my Neheb, so I'm probably not going to be building a one around her anytime soon. But again, I would love to see somebody else build a deck around her and play against it and see how it goes. Alright, Riveteers Charm. So let's see what Riveteers Charm's got for us. Black, red, green. For an instant, choose 1. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. Highest mana value. Yeah, highest mana value. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards. Exile target player's graveyard. Riveteers Charm is one of those where that top one it's just like the Maestros, right? That top one is the reason why you play this card. The other ones are just kind of icing on the cake. Exile target player. I mean, there are definitely graveyard strategies out there, and nuking them is a good idea. But that top one is why you run this card, if you're going to at all. Alright. Mr. Orfeo, I guess. The Boulder. I'm guessing that's how you say that. Mr. Orfeo. Alright, so 1 black, red, green for a Rhino Warrior 2/4. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. So this guy doesn't, he, on its face, he doesn't look as powerful as the other uncommon commanders that we've seen, right? But again, I wouldn't sleep on this guy. This guy looks like he's he's in red. He doubles the target creature's power. So you whenever you attack, he has the potential to be a very very aggressive deck. And you're in green, which means you have access to ramp, which means you can be aggressive through every turn of the game. You're not just aggressive at the beginning, you can be aggressive all the way up until the late game with your super big, massive creatures that are going to swing in for 6, and then because you're attacking, you can have your commander double that to 12 and just do a stupid amount of damage, and hopefully that thing has trample. I again, this is another one of those. Don't sleep on it. This guy's an aggro commander that's going to be pretty powerful. All right, crew captain. Let's see what you got. Crew captain. One of each of the colors for a 4/2 with haste. Crew captain has indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. Okay, interesting. And then after that, I mean, it's got haste, so haste and indestructible during the turn that it comes in. I guess that's not bad. Again, this is a very aggressive card. But then after that, you kind of just want to sacrifice it and then try to get it to re-enter the battlefield again. That's what I feel like you want to do with that guy. Riveteers Requisitioner. Alright, so we've got a 1 and a red for a 3/1 Vicino Rogue. When it dies, you create a treasure token and it has Blitz. Okay. So 3 mana for a treasure token, though? I don't know. It doesn't have haste. Well, I mean, technically, if it has Blitz, it has haste, so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if 3 for a treasure token, if it's worth it. But I mean, again, if you build your deck around it, I'm sure that you can take advantage of that. Because Blitz seems to be a very prominent theme just among the regular set, and I guarantee in the Commander set, like they're gonna have even more cards that are that are centered around Blitz. So there's gonna be plenty of ways to take advantage of Riveteers Requisitioner. Night Clubber. 1 black black for a 2/2 human warrior. When Night Clubber enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 to end a turn, and it has Bliss. Okay, so this is like a mini board wipe because it gets everything. It's a debuff of -1/-1, so it'll get rid of like those mana dorks that are 1/1s. Interesting. Yeah, I mean it's not a bad one, and it has Blitz. So if nothing else, you play, and the Blitz cost, it actually incentivizes you to play the Blitz cost because it's 1 black black to keep them on, but you pay the Blitz cost for just 2 in a black instead. Because that Blitz cost is an alternative cost. It's not you having to pay. It's not like Kicker where you pay additional. It's in the place of. So that's actually kind of interesting. Riveteers Decoy. So 1 and a green for a 3/1 human warrior. Riveteers Decoy must be blocked if able, and it has a Blitz of for 4. So ooh. This is a way for your big guys to get through. If Riveteers Decoy has to be blocked, it means it has to be blocked by each creature that's able to block it. And that means that they cannot block your other big boy that's going to swing in there and just do a crap ton of damage to your opponent. Pugnacious. I have never seen that word before. Pugnacious. I'm actually going to look that up right now. What the heck does pugnacious mean? Pugnacious. Eager or quick to argue, quarrel, or fight. Okay, I believe you should learn something when you go on streams. So there you go. Pugnacious. Alright, so 3, red for a 4/4 Ogre Warrior. Whenever Pugnacious Pugilist, I don't know, Pugilist, attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 Red Devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Okay. So, yeah. That's another one of those where you get like an extra devil to kind of do an additional damage. It's interesting. It's all right. It's all right. I don't think it's fantastic, but it's okay. Mass Bandits. A raccoon rogue. That's super cool. I just like the fact that it's a raccoon. And this is another one of those that does the color fixing land if you exile it for 2. And it has vigilance and menace. Oh wow. And it's a 5/5. Yeah, that guy, I feel like they took like Rocket Raccoon and this is their version of him as a card. Like that's honestly what I feel like. They're like, "Yep, Rocket Raccoon, this is our version of you." There you go. You can play you play Riveteers as Guardians of the Galaxy. There, your Guardians of the Galaxy deck. There it is. All right. Riveteers Overlook. I'm not going to click on that one again. It's the same thing as we saw before with the other Maestros Theater and the Obscura Storefront. Riveteers Initiate. So let's see. We got 1 and a red for a Vicino Citizen. 2/2. 1 and a hybrid black-green. Riveteers Initiate gains Death Touch till end of turn. That's decent. I mean, it's another one of those that feels like it would be good for a 60-card format rather than Commander, but at least it's 2 mana for something rather than 5 mana for something. Mayhem Patrol, 1 and a red for a Devil Warrior, 1/2 with Menace, so it can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Whenever Mayhem Patrol attacks, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and it has Blitz. Yeah, again, this is another one of those that feels like it's meant for 60 card rather than Commander. Chaldaya Strongarm, as I think. Chaldaya Strong. He looks like he's supposed to be like freaking. Like, look at that. He's massive. He's just a freaking beefcake. Okay. So 4 and a green for a 2/3. When Chaldaya Strongarm enters the battlefield, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. And it has Blitz. Huh. I feel like this is worth it, the Blitz cost. I don't think I would. Of course, that's what they're trying to do. They want to incentivize you to play the Blitz part of this card, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and again, it's another one of those where it's good for 60 card, maybe not for Commander. Girder Goons. 4 and a black. When Girder Goons dies, create a 2/2 black rogue creature token with Blitz. And it's a 3 and a black for a Blitz instead of 4 and a black for normal. Makes sense. Plasma Jockey. Plasma Jockey, so 3 and a red for a Vicino Warrior, 3/1. When Plasma Jockey attacks, target creature and opponent controls can't block this turn. And then it has Blitz for 2 and a red. That's actually something that red does actually quite often, where it actually forces it to where your opponent does not block, as opposed to green, where sometimes it forces everything to block one thing instead. So that's actually kind of cool, because it gives you additional ways to get through to your opponents and deal the maximum amount of damage possible. Alright, and then we're going to skip past all the mono cards, because that's not why we're here today. And we're on to the Commander cards for Riveteers Rampage, and then I can look at the other ones here. So let's see. Henzi Toolbox Torre, that's how I feel like that should be pronounced. Okay, he's a Devil Rogue, 3/3. Okay, that's cool. For 1 of each of the colors. Again, makes sense. On theme. Each creature spell you cast with mana value 4 or greater has Blitz. Oh my gosh. So Blitz cost is equal to its mana cost. You may choose to cast that spell for its Blitz cost. If you do, it gains haste, and then, yeah, when it dies, it draws a card, and you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Blitz costs you pay cost 1 less for each time you've cast your Commander from the command zone this game. Oh, that. Oh, man. Now, this is going to be one of those weird ones where I'm going to say that Henzi might not be the face commander of your deck. As weird as that sounds, like yes, that's a powerful ability, and he can be a powerful commander himself. But maybe if you were to have somehow Henzi in your deck with other commanders that just have those colors, that would be interesting because maybe you do something like partner commanders, and the way that that works is that the blitz cost in that case will be reduced 2 times for each time that you cast one of your partner commanders, because now you have 2 commanders that is having to track as your commander. Oof. Oh man, that is. Oh man. Yeah, I feel like he's going to be ridiculous. As a commander and even as like a strong lieutenant, Henzi's good. All right, Beamtown Bullies. The Beamtown Bullies is a 1 black red green for a 4/4 Ogre Devil Warrior. Vigilance and haste, so it doesn't tap when it attacks and it doesn't have summoning sickness. Tap, target opponent whose turn it is puts a target non-legendary creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield under their control. It gains haste and goad it. At the beginning of the next end step, exile it. Oof. This would be an interesting one to build around. This is a very... And this can be very political too. Because now it's a weird like thing of like I'm gonna give you creatures so that way you can smash into my other opponents. This is a very political commander. I like this guy a lot. I would love to see a deck built around them, and actually I say them because I guess it is plural, but I would love to see a deck played around them, and then I would want to see how that actually works. Okay, Riveteers Confluence. Let's see what this one's got. So 2 black, red, green. So 5 mana total. For a sorcery, you choose 3. You draw a card, lose 1 life. Okay, right. That's always worth it. Well, I mean, for 5, in these colors, drawing 3 cards for 5 is not terrible. Right? It's better if it's 4, but it's not bad if it's 5. Riveteers Confluence deals 1 damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control, so if you choose that 3 times, it's 3 damage. That's a lot. That's actually potentially a board wipe. And then you may put a land card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. That's pretty cool. I would say that if you're going to put this anywhere in your slots, as far as your deck is concerned, I feel like this is in a board wipe slot. That middle one, because you can do 3 damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control. It's very one-sided. You're not going to hit the super big creatures, but you'll get rid of a lot of their utility creatures for sure. So I think, yeah, Riveteers Confluence is definitely one I would put in the deck that has those colors. And then if nothing else, if you don't need it for the board wipe function, well, you have 2 other things that you can do with it. Alright, let's keep going down here. Alright, let's see what we got here. So we did Beamtown Bullies. What about Bellowing Mauler? Bellowing Mauler. Bellowing Mauler. It's a black card. So 4 and a black for an Ogre Warrior. 4/6. At the beginning of your end step, each player loses 4 life unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. Oh my goodness. That is very punishing. That is like taxes to the max. Taxes and drain to the max. I like that a lot. Now, given I don't know a deck that's going to... Like, a deck that would run this card, like, very, very effectively would be something like Kamal. Or not Kamal, sorry, Kambal. Console of Allocation. Like, that's because that's exactly what he does as a commander. He's like, I think he's one, a white, and a black. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, right? And then on top of that, this guy, you play that guy in there, and then that's just at end step. It just happens at each end step. So you're just taking more life from him. You're draining more life out of him, and it's just Kambal is a very slow deck strategy to play. Typically, but that's the thing, is that if you're gonna build that kind of deck, you have to be a very special kind of person, that you're patient and you really bide your time, and you really make sure that when you finally drained everybody to a significant level, then you pull out whatever the last little bit of life that you can get out of anybody that's left, I should say. Because you'd be surprised how in a deck like that, where people are taking little bits of life here and there, they don't really notice it up until finally they're already half their life is gone because they've cast so many spells, and they're like, what the, okay, now that's a problem. But nobody else sees the Cabal deck as the problem, because you're the one that casts all these spells. They just see that, okay, you have a huge board state, now we're going to get rid of you because you're the one that looks ahead. And the Cabal player is just sitting there like, oh no, you lost more life and I got it all. So, yeah, Bellowing Mauler feels like that's the kind of deck that it goes into. Just all that to say that. Okay, next one we got is Protection Racket. Protection Racket. Protection Racket. Really? This is okay? Okay. I guess it's all the black cards. Okay, Protection Racket. Let's look over here in the red cards. Maybe the green cards. Maybe. Huh. Protection Racket. I'm quite confused. I'm just not. Either I'm just blind and I'm not seeing it right now, or it's not here. Protection Racket, huh? Okay, so I'm not blind. I'm not seeing it. I am definitely not seeing it, and it's bothering me a little bit. Maybe it's up here? No, because I feel like we would have seen that. Huh. That's super weird. I see it here in the list. Protection Racket, and it's, yeah, I don't see it nowheres. It's not in the main set for that one, at least. Very odd. I'm gonna click on this. Oh, actually it doesn't allow me to, so never mind. I guess I'm not gonna click on it. Well, I mean, I guess I can click on it, but it doesn't have me go anywhere. Here, let me see. I'm gonna look it up here. MTG, Protection, Racket. Go. Okay. Oh, that was over there. Where the heck is it? I know I saw that image. Oh my gosh, it was right in front of my face. It was right next to Bellowing Mauler. I'm just an idiot. Okay. Alright, Protection Racket. So 2 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each opponent in turn order. Reveal the top card of their library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, exile that card. Otherwise, put it into your hand. Ooh. Ooh. I feel like... that was like more like a steal your card kind of thing. I don't feel like that's a very uh Riveteer thing. I feel like that's more of a Maestros thing, but I mean, hey, whatever. Still a good card. I mean, that's taking your opponent's things. Yep, still a good card. Um, let's see. Wave of Rats. Ew, that sounds fantastic. Wave of Rats. 3 and a black for a rat. 4/2 with trample. Oh man, this is some big old rats if they got trample. Um, when Wave of Rats dies, if it dealt combat damage to a player this turn, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and it has Blitz. Oh my goodness. I mean, so it's not like you can, like, if you play it for its Blitz cost, you're only going to get to draw the card the one time for playing the Blitz cost. But I mean, still, then it just comes back, and it's just rude all the time. This is a very pestilent creature. Industrial advancement. All right, so industrial advancement. Maybe that's that one. I definitely am not seeing in black. Maybe, yeah, here we go. This is a red card. Okay, not going crazy. I mean, I'm a little crazy, but you know, whatever. All right, 3 in a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. You may put a creature card from among them into the battlefield. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. Industrial Advancement is a card I want in my Chainer Nightmare deck. That's amazing. I sacrifice a creature that's out to get potentially a creature that I'm going to get into on the top of my library, off the top of my library. And then Chainer is very similar to Marin, where I can cast creatures directly from my graveyard. So long as I discard a card. Yeah, I think the Industrial Advancement is a card I definitely want in that deck. That's a Rakdos color, so black red. Yeah, it's like self. I don't want to say self mill because that's not true, right? Because it was in the bottom of your library, but that's still it's still a potential for digging further into your library for a sack outlet. Actually, my Corvold deck wouldn't mind this either. Yeah, and Corvold has a tendency to make a lot of tokens. So yeah, I think that I mean, Industrial Advancement is just a good card. Yep, would recommend. Would recommend in a sack in a deck that wants to sacrifice. Mezio Mugger. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. This is by Shino Rogue. Alright, Mezio Mugger. We got 4 and a red for a Vicino Rogue 3/3. Whenever Mezio Mugger attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Interesting. Okay. Well, so that part kind of makes sense because of the Mugger part. So right, obviously they're trying, they're stealing from you. So that part kind of makes sense as far as the ability of the card with the name of the card. It's nice flavor. And it's whenever it attacks. So that's yeah, that's cool. It's like that's actually funny. We were just talking about that earlier. It's like the elder dinosaur. I was gonna say dragon. The elder dinosaur that does something like that. Except that you don't have to pay their mana cost for the dinosaur. So this just feels like a diet version of that. It's let's see. Reign of Riches. That Reign of Riches is over here. It's this guy. Reign of Riches, 3 red red for an enchantment. When Reign of Riches enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. The first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure token was spent to cast has Cascade. Oh, cool. Ooh. I feel like this goes in a deck. There's a dwarf that came out in Kaldheim where whenever a dwarf taps it, at all, like you can create treasure tokens, and then you can sack 5 treasure tokens to search your library for a dragon card and put it directly into the battlefield. This is another one of those cards that like clearly goes into a deck like that, or even like a mono red deck that that innately creates a lot of treasure tokens. Like this just goes in a deck like that, because then your big dragons will actually end up casting more spells off the top of the library for you and give you more innate value. I like it. I think that's a good card. Turf War. Here we go. Turf War, 4 and a red for an enchantment with Turf War enters the battlefield. For each player, put a contested counter on a target land that player controls. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, if that player controls 1 or more lands with contested counters on them, that creature's controller gains control of one of those lands of their choice and untaps it. Ooh, that's gonna be chaotic. That's definitely a chaotic card. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's gonna be wild. If that's just gonna be goofy. That'll be fun actually to kind of see, but that'll get chaotic really fast. um. All right, so Kaldaya Guardian. That sounds like a green card. Yep. Alright, so Kaldaya Guardian, we have 3 and a green for a human soldier that's a 4/3. Whenever Kaldaya Guardian or another creature you control with mana 4 or greater dies, create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Okay, so yeah, and it has Blitz. Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, it's not like and especially from what we've seen so far, it's not uncommon to see a creature with mana value 4 or greater. That will more than likely have Blitz and that will die. So, and again, another incentive for you to use the Blitz mechanic. It's not a bad one. Dodgy Jalopy. Okay, this is interesting looking. Dodgy Jalopy. So 2 and a green for a vehicle. Has star and 5. Trample. Dodgy Jalopy's power is equal to the highest mana value among creatures you control. More than likely, the if you decide to make your dragon the commander, that'd be the dragon, that demon dragon. Crew 3, so it has to be 3, and scavenge. Scavenge is a keyword I have not seen in a long time. Scavenge comes from, I think it's the return to Ravnica, so this is the second time that they were in Ravnica. And it's specific to the Golgari, which is the green black, the green black guild, and so scavenge, yeah, it has the reminder text, right? I guess I could just read it, right? 2 and a green for exile this card from your graveyard, and then put a number of +1/+1 counters on, equal to this card's power onto a target creature. And then scavenge only as a sorcery. So, well, so that's ironic, right? Because okay, because technically, it will always have the highest value among mana value among creatures you control. It will have that as its power. So if you scavenge it, then you will still get those +1/+1 counters on whichever creature you decide to put it on. That's kind of wild. That is kind of wild. that can make one creature really big really fast. You just double the counter. You can double the power of a creature potentially. That's kind of crazy. All right, I'll buy it for $1. First responder. Okay, first responder. Here we go. Ogre citizen. That's funny. So for 3 and a green, for a 3/3 ogre citizen with vigilance, at the beginning of your end step, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. Then put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that creature's power on first responder. Okay. I see that as more of a value piece. Like, so, like, maybe a creature that tapped and attacked, and then you can bounce that creature back if you're or like even if you used a blitz, you can have the one of those blitz cards actually come back to your hand because you'll have first responders triggered ability resolve first before that particular creature's blitz. I feel like that's why they did that way. Interesting. Very interesting. I like that card. For this particular mechanic, not all the time. But it's still, I feel like it's still a good value piece. Next of kin. Alright. 2 and a green for an aura, okay. Enchant creature. When enchanted creature dies, you may put a creature card you own with lesser mana value from your hand or from the command zone onto the battlefield. If you do, return next of kin to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so it gives you more ways to reuse the cards that you have. That's not bad. I don't think that's a bad card at all. Grime Gorger. Where's that guy? Grime Gorger. Here we go. 2 black and green for a horror. 3/3 menace, so it can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Whenever Grime Gorger attacks, exile up to 1 card of each type from a defending player's graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Grime Gorger for each card exiled this way. Oh my goodness. I feel like he can get big pretty quick. I mean, not to say that everybody's gonna have like just a crazy amount of other types of cards, because typically, like, you know, you're not gonna have like your focused decks are gonna have really one type of card for the most part that in their graveyard, if any at all. So you're probably only gonna get 1 +1/+1 counter each time. But chances are good that you may actually hit 2 or 3 if they have like a lot of cantrips in the deck or something, or if they just had a very explosive turn last turn. It's very possible. Grime Gorger is he's okay. You know, I mean, he's not fantastic, but he's okay. Jolene, Plunderer Queen. All right, let's go back up here. Jolene. 2, a red and a green for a legendary creature human warrior 2/2. Whenever player attacks one or more of your opponents, that attacking player creates a treasure token. If you would create one or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. Sacrifice 5 treasures, put 5 +1/+1 counters onto Jolene. Yeah, she's pretty ridiculous with those treasure tokens. And this set, even in the main set, has some green cards that actually deal with treasure tokens, which is kind of odd because treasure tokens, mainly in the past, were more so to help out the other colors kind of catch up to green. And this time, green seems to be able to cash in on that as well. I think this would be an interesting commander to play with. It's doing something that green doesn't normally do. Whereas, I mean, other than like obviously green normally ramps, but there are other things to do with treasure tokens that green didn't have access to before, and I think that would be interesting to see. All right, Riveteers Confluence. We talked about that. Weathered Sentinels. Weathered Sentinels. Oh no, this is going to be another one of those where I didn't see it, so I don't know. It's going to be... trying to find it. It's going to be... Unnecessary. Okay. Let's... Nope. Here we go. Okay. Weathered Sentinels 3 for an artifact creature wall 2/5. Defender, Vigilance, Reach, Trample. That's interesting. I've never seen a defender with like keyword soup on it. That's interesting. Okay. Weathered Sentinels can't attack players who attacked you during their last turn. Oh, they can. Okay, Weathered Sentinels can attack players who attacked you during their last turn as though it didn't have Defender. Whenever Weathered Sentinels attacks, it gets +3/+3 and gains indestructible until end of turn. You know, so I find it funny when they come out with cards like this, like way in the future. So in the past, this was back in 2018. I built a deck called Thantis, right? And Thantis was this like, it was this deck that wanted to be hyper aggressive, but it was 6 mana to cast this spider, and it was the same colors. It was black, red, green, and Thantis had reach and vigilance, so he could attack. He forced other players to attack with their creatures. The deck was built around basically forcing goad, which this gang seems to do a little bit of. And then they come out with something like Weathered Sentinels, and it's like, man, I really wish that the deck, that the Windgrace deck had a card like this for Thantis in it. Even though, again, like, you know, precons, they especially at the time, they did not make them as nearly as balanced as they have in recent times. But I just feel like a card like Weathered Sentinels would have really been fantastic to put into a deck like Thantis. It might actually make Thantis a little bit more viable, because it really like when you start putting the hate on other players like that with a deck like Thantis that forces other players to attack, they're going to attack you more than likely. So yeah, it's actually kind of cool to see something like this, though. I'm glad that it's one of those where it's like I feel like it's better late than never, you know. Okay, so next one we've got Aether Snap. Aether Snap. Interesting. Okay. Aether Snap. That feels... Huh. Okay, that might be in the main set somewhere. Aether Snap. That's ironic. That feels like it would be a blue card, but maybe it's a red card. No. Let's go. Okay. Interesting. Okay, have not seen it so far. Nope, definitely have not seen it so far. Okay. Interesting. So, looks like this is another one we're going to have to look up really quick. MTG Aether Snap. Go. Oops. Maybe I should spell it correctly. That would help. Okay. So this is actually... Aether Snap is actually an older card that they reprinted. Interesting. So, 3 black for remove all counters from all permanents and exile all tokens. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. That's kind of a cool card. It's a reprint, so I find that kind of interesting that didn't end up in one of the other ones that they had here. Because all these other reprints that they put in here are in this other one. This one didn't happen to make it over there for some reason. But okay. Alright. Alright. Glittering Stockpile. I feel like Glittering Stockpile is another one that's like that. Where it's a reprint, but... Yeah, Glittering Stockpile. Maybe not. Maybe this is... Okay, no, never mind. This is one that I just overlooked. So, glittering stockpile, artifact treasure, interesting. Add a red mana, put a stash counter on glittering stockpile. Tap, sacrifice glittering stockpile, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters on glittering stockpile. Now, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I just, yeah, there's nothing that like says you must put this card in a red deck. This feels like what they did with the I can't remember like the slang term for the lands, but there are lands out there that maybe it is stockpile lands, I guess. I don't know. But they're the lands that do something like this, where you can tap it for mana, or you can tap it and put a counter on it, and then you can tap it and sacrifice it, and then however many counters are on it, you add that much of any combination of that colored mana, like depending like typically they're two colors, right? Or it was like there's the one that's like colorless, and you would just add that much mana to your mana pool. Except that this time it's a treasure. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, oh, I must have this card in the deck. It just is. It's okay. It's not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really like it. I don't really like it. It doesn't really jump out. And then Riveteers. I think we talked about Riveteers. Oh no, there was an ascendancy. So Riveteers Overlook. We talked about Riveteers Charm. Riveteers Overlook. That might be one towards the bottom. Okay, here we go. Huh. It's not towards the bottom. We have Vazi Keen Negotiator here, which that one isn't mentioned, which is odd. I don't know why they didn't mention that to be in the Riveteers Rampage deck. In the actual deck list, yeah. Interesting. Itali Primal Storm. That's the elder dinosaur that I was thinking of. But yeah, like that's weird. Like why would you why I find that super odd. In any case, let's go over Vazi Keen Negotiator because she's clearly in the Riveteers colors. All right, Vazi Keen Negotiator. 2 black, red, green for a human advisor, 3/3 with haste. Tap, target opponent creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of treasure tokens you created this turn. Whenever an opponent casts a spell or activates an ability, if mana from a treasure token was spent to cast it or activate it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then draw a card. Very interesting. This is another one of those political ones where it's like, I'm going to give you all these treasure tokens and I'm going to get to draw a bunch of cards because of it. I think, and I do enjoy that Wizards has seemingly been doing this, where they give these commanders this ability to have more of that kind of interaction of like, okay, I'm gonna scratch your back, you scratch mine, sort of deal. And I think that as actually very flavorful for the plane that we're in, as far as this kind of like, this 1920s era, like entire realm was run by mobsters sort of deal, where it's like, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and we just call it a day, okay? I think that's actually kind of a cool thing that they decided to put in here. So yeah, I like it. I think that's actually super. I would love to see a commander deck actually built around this guy or girl. Actually, it's a girl. Actually built around this card. All right, and then from the looks of it, gang, I think we are all done for tonight. We just got through 2 of the gangs that are here. the next stream that I do, that's going to be the spoiler one, is going to be the last two. So that's going to be the Cabaretti and the Brokers. Um, and I think that they're actually super cool too. For different reasons, not like because of the mechanics necessarily, because they're very much within the colors that I would expect for them to do, but I still find them to be super cool. In any case, guys, I super appreciate those of you who stuck around to view the discussion and that you guys interacted. I super appreciate the support, and I absolutely love all you guys that are following me. Please check out my Twitter, check out my Facebook page. That's where I post some of my stuff, and I'm gonna put the Discord link also in the chat right now. And if you guys would like to join the Discord chat, that's where I'm going to be posting my schedule most of the time. I do interact on Discord pretty often as well because I do play other games, multiple games. Speaking of which, I am going to be doing a collaboration with Codename Red for another game that I think you guys might like. It's a little bit more fast-paced than Magic, so we'll see. How you doing? Appreciate you jumping in there, One Swell Sailor. Coming up towards the end here, but yeah, it was a fun time, and please definitely view the rest of the video if you'd like. And I super appreciate everybody that comes on to view and support, and I really love, like I said, I really love just spreading my enthusiasm about a game that I really love to play. And I hope that maybe one of these times I can convince you guys to play too and come on to Spell Table and we'll play. So, in any case, guys, it's getting late. I love y'all. Have a good night, and we will talk to you later. Let's see if I can raid a channel. I actually have the option to do it, but I have nobody online right now that I follow. So, okay. I guess I need to start like reaching out more and try to follow more people. In any case, guys, love you guys. I will see you the next time I stream, and I will make sure to post it into Discord what my schedule is going to look like for next week. All right, peace. Love y'all.